Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Day number 2 of the Trump Party convention, or the convention formerly known as the Republican Party. We should come up with a symbol for that, like Prince. Since this is no longer the Republican Party, this is fully straight on the Donald Trump fascist party, and it's playing out. I got to tell you, just amazing footage from yesterday's convention. I was up 3 o'clock in the morning, watched the entire shindig, because it's what you do at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? If you're up, you can't sleep, you watch a bad infomercial. And that's really what it was. It was creepy on so many levels, and brought out a bunch of people. You just go, really, this is the direction you want the country to go. For me, this is one of those moments where I'm okay with Donald Trump doing this every night until election time. I'm okay with this kind of cavalcade of crazy. Keep marching them out. Keep marching out the Stepford wives and the insaniacs and the conspiracy theorists. Bring them all out, because maybe that's how we heal the country. Sadly, though, we weren't paying attention. Trump drew 3 million fewer viewers on night number 1 than the Democrats. Interesting, though, 3 million viewers, 3 million. 3 million's an interesting number, because that's the number of votes that Hillary Clinton got more than Donald Trump got. So kind of interesting. Night 1, however, not good. 15.8 million viewers for Trump, 18.7 for the Democrats on average throughout the week. So we'll see how the Republicans do. Did night number 1 excite people? Did it make you want to go, I gotta see night number 2? Was it spellbinding television, where they brought people in and had 6 people in a room with Trump and had him staring at them going, now say something nice about me? I don't know. I don't know that that's spellbinding TV. I don't know if it's must-see TV. We will see with tomorrow's ratings. But it was interesting. I mean, there were some really great, crazy moments. Obviously, the coked up son, Don Jr., I don't know if he was coked up or not, but it looked like it. Him and the girlfriend. Wow, crazy. Crazy couple. They were off on wild tangents of I don't know who wrote their speeches. I hope they didn't write them themselves. But crazy. According to the girlfriend, evidently Joe Biden wants to steal your liberty. He's going to steal your freedom. He's going to enslave you to the weak victim ideology. And I'm sitting there going, nobody plays the victim card quite as well as Donald Trump does. If you listen to him, no one's ever been treated as badly as me. No one's ever been investigated as much as me. No one likes me. No one plays the victim card as well as me. It's incredible, but it got crazier and crazier as the day went on. Matt Gaetz, the representative from Florida, which please have that lunch money victim on every day of the week. Please have him be your spokesman. Because evidently, according to him, the Democrats are going to take all your guns. They're going to let all the violent criminals out of jail. They're going to lock you in your house. And they're going to invite MS-13 to move in next door. Yeah, that's, if you didn't know, and I know Republicans, or the party formerly known as the Republican Party, now the Trump Party, you don't know about platforms this time around because you don't have one, because you're going to just bow to dear leader. But according to Gaetz, this is somewhere written in the Democratic platform. They went through a Democratic process of laying out their list of priorities, and one of them was invite MS-13 to come live next door to you while taking your gun and letting all the violent criminals out and having a barbecue. Evidently, that's coming too. And it's all going to be paid for with your tax dollars. I mean, this is the kind of nonsense that they had put on full display. Now, remember, this was supposed to be a positive and uplifting convention. What could be more positive than telling you that the Democrats are going to steal your children and they're going to put MS-13 in your backyard? What could be more positive than that? Donald Trump Jr. said that, Donald Trump built the greatest economy ever. He said, look to the man who did what the failed Obama-Biden administration never could do and built the greatest economy the country has ever seen. That's not remotely close to reality. Understand, we were moving constantly forward, not fast enough for some. I would have liked to have seen more stimulus. I would have liked to have seen more public investment. I would have loved to have seen a massive stimulus bill of, trillions of dollars like the Republicans pumped into the Trump administration during the Obama years, but the Republicans would have none of it. Understand, Trump loves to say that he inherited an economy that was, is bad, was in recession, we were dying. He didn't. He didn't inherit what Barack Obama got from George W. Bush, which was an economy that was losing 1 million freaking jobs a month. We were in terminal velocity free fall. Reality, 2014, 2015, the country's adding 250,000 jobs each and every month. 2015, 227,000 jobs a month. 2016, 193,000 jobs a month. And according to Trump, this was bad. But his first year, 2017, 179,000 jobs per month, less than the Obama era. How's that possible? 2018, because of a massive stimulus, jumped up to 223,000. Still not as high as the Obama years, still not there, but good. 2019, you're down to 175,000. Explain to me again how he's the job creator and how he built the most prosperous economy ever. You know what he did do? You know who it's prosperous for? Wall Street. They're really happy because that tax welfare plan that they gave out, that massive tax break for the wealthy in corporate America, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about Wall Street. They're not talking about Main Street. They don't give a tinker's damn about workers. So I thought it was interesting that they kept hammering on how bad the economy was under Obama, hoping that we'll forget that it was actually growing and growing and growing from the basement where Obama had taken it over to where they handed off a pretty good economy to Trump. Things were pretty good, except for the very wealthy, because they were paying a little bit higher taxes. Now, thanks to Trump, that's not so much of a problem. And now what you've got his horrible response to the coronavirus, which, if you watched the presentation yesterday, a masterful bit of rewriting of the last 3.5 years of history, and especially the last several months, because according to Donald Trump, and we have to thank dear leader, because he saved millions of us from dying because of his decisive action. Now, as someone who can remember a couple of months ago, I mean, my mind does go way, way back to, a couple of months ago. I do remember him, basically saying it's all a hoax. I remember the not wearing a mask. I remember them saying it's not a big deal. I remember him saying, lots of things. It's just like the flu. I remember him saying, drink bleach, shove light up your butt. I remember a lot of that stuff. I don't remember the decisive action. He did send the USS Comfort into Manhattan there, and it was a beautiful sight on the Hudson River. Problem is nobody got on it, really, because logistically it was way too difficult to deal with. There was that. But I also remember the fact that, he had no overarching national plan. There was nothing there. And in fact, what it came down to is how much, and we're finding out more and more, how much they could steal, how much graft they could come up with, and how they could harm the states for political reasons. We now find out that right at the very beginning, there was no urgency. There was no, oh, we've got to act, because it was just happening to those Democratic states. It was just happening to New York and Washington and California and Pennsylvania. Screw them. Those are Democratic states. We don't care about them. Because, hey, we can use this for our political advantage. This is how Trump thinks. But that didn't come out last night during the thing. If you watched it, and this is one of those, as I finished, I sat there and I'm going, wow, I feel assaulted. I feel stupider. It's a lot of things. But I said, if you weren't paying attention, if you're a low information voter, if you're someone who doesn't keep up with this stuff daily, you'd go, wow, this guy's great. He saved millions of people from dying of the coronavirus. Thank goodness he was there. And yet, we've got almost 180,000 Americans dead. And we're nowhere near the end of it. At every turn, there's a false hope of, hey, get your hydroxychloroquine, which we now find out actually probably killed more people than it helped. Hey, get your bleach, which I'm sure there's somebody out there who stupidly drank the bleach. And now it's this plasma thing that now the FDA is saying, well, maybe we hyped it a little bit too much. Maybe it's helpful. Maybe we went a little too far. And this is my fear. My fear is that, this PR, this sunny PR, because look, we all want this to end. We all want the economy to get back to the way it was. We all want to get back to our lives. And we want sunny optimism. We want, the one thing Reagan was always, credited with is, he always is a sunny optimist. And Trump is the same way, but ridiculously so. In a major global pandemic, it's wonderful. The economy is going to come back wonderfully. I mean, it's just really crazy. And what you have is you then have night number 2, which I'll tell you, I was really hoping to hear from the anti-Semite woman who tweeted out this QAnon craziness. That evidently Jews are going to take over the world, and there's a whole bunch of not jobbery right there. She was scheduled to speak because she's the angel mom. Evidently, last second they go, uh-oh, too crazy, flashing alert, too crazy even for us, and they have booted Marianne Mendoza. She's off, but the other one, and the one that I can't wait to see. Her name is Abby Johnson. Abby is an anti-abortion activist, and who must have heard Ronna McDaniels last night saying that, and what Donald Trump has said, that the Democrats want on-demand abortion up until the second of birth. So as I've said in the past, when my wife and I had our 3 kids, or when my wife had them and I went with her, at that moment we could have looked at each other and go, which way are we going with this? They coming out, they going to live or die? And at that moment we could have, as the head pops out, we could have chopped it off. Evidently, that's what they want us to believe. I'm not making this up. This is one of those things where you go, no, that would never be what they would say. Well, Donald Trump himself has said it.
Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month.
He meant
it is wrong. It has to change.
He misspoke. He meant, terminated. They believe this. Now, Abby's one of these people who believes this. She's obviously one of those. But for me, more importantly, she's also someone who has promoted racial profiling. And not just racial profiling of, there's those angry black men. They're intimidating and police need to follow them because they commit crimes. And we know that statistically, they know that. She's all in favor of that. But evidently, she has an adopted biracial son. So she's basically saying, my kid's, cute and all lovable now, but as he gets older, you better watch out for my son. You better racially profile my kid because, well, I'm crazy, so he might be too. I want to know how you come to that. Also, my other favorite bit is she's also an advocate of head of household voting, which I'll tell you I hadn't heard of. This must be, part of the quiverful nonsense, the whole religious crazy stuff that happens. She's full on advocate for head of household voting, which is exactly what it says. I mean, when you do your taxes, if you're not married, you can claim head of household, and for everybody in the house, you get the tax breaks and all that stuff. They want to have, one voter. The head of the household gets the vote. We decide. Like if my wife and I go to the polls and we disagree over someone, we can cancel each other out. In her world, my wife would have to sit down and shut up and go back to the kitchen. And she just told me I'm number one, and not in a nice way. This would mean that I would be the head of the household and my vote would matter, which I'll tell you, as a white guy, land-owning white male, there's part of me that goes, maybe this isn't a bad world. Maybe we could put Abby somewhere where maybe we don't have to deal with her. Just kind of a thought. But full on crazy. The kookery right on display. Night 2 promising to be just as crazy as night 1. Cannot wait to see it as it's going on. But when we come back, our good friend, former Congressman Joe Walsh, going to share some of his thoughts on the quackery, the insanity, and, the sad nature of the party formerly known as the Republican Party. Quick break. Right back with Joe Walsh. Stick around.
There's nothing more American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win.
On the Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1934. That was the day National Guard troops in Minneapolis raided Teamsters Local 574 headquarters. Over 150 were arrested, including top strike leaders Bill Brown and the Dunn brothers, who were imprisoned in military stockades. Troops also seized union records and files. They then raided the Central Labor Union and forcing out dozens of area labor leaders. The Teamsters had been battling the trucking bosses and the Citizens Alliance throughout the spring and summer in what would be a turning point for industrial organizing. Finally, drivers agreed to a tentative settlement, but the bosses rejected any deal, refusing to negotiate with Reds. Farmer Labor Party Governor Floyd Olson Day. 4,000 troops arrived, issuing unlimited military permits to scab drivers. By month's end, over 7,500 scab trucks were rolling throughout the city. Local 574 challenged the martial law, demanding that peaceful picketing and open-air meetings be reinstated. They also wanted troops withdrawn from the city, and they wanted all truck movement halted for 48 hours. When Olson rejected these demands, a mass rally was called for the 31st to mobilize strike support. 25,000 turned out to the parade grounds cheering strike leader Bill Brown, who declared, quote, "The Farmer Labor Party is the best strike-breaking force our union has ever gone up against." Historian Brian Palmer notes, the loudest and longest applause was reserved for Albert Goldman, who thundered, quote, "If we submit without a struggle, then we deserve the fate of submissive slaves. We cannot, we dare not submit. We call upon the workers, organized and unorganized, to clench their fists, shout defiance of the bosses, and struggle until victory or death."
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So Miles Taylor, a former top official at the Department of Homeland Security, the guy who endorsed Joe Biden, evidently today claimed that Donald Trump offered pardons to anyone who broke the law while carrying out his immigration policies. And if you remember, there were a bunch of news stories around this a couple years ago when this happened. So to have him come out now, I think important to remember that this was front and foremost for a little while, and that I believe it actually did happen. And I'm sure he's offered pardons around. And I remember saying at the time, he offered it. Do you actually think he's going to come through and follow through? Or is it, well, you got yourself into trouble. Sorry, next. I I wouldn't take him up on it, but we are where we are. Anyway, here to talk about day one of the party formerly known as the Republican Party's convention and the quackery that we saw. I've asked former Illinois Congressman Joe Walsh to come share some thoughts with us. Joe, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, my friend, always good to be with you, sir.
So let me get your gut reaction to what we saw. I guess first we should start with, did you watch it?
Yes.
And what was your gut reaction to it?
What I expected. Trump is losing. He's losing badly. The only shot he's got is to scare the hell out of white people. And that's what we saw a lot of last night, and we saw it overtly and subtly, and we will see it all week. It's his only chance to win.
Yeah. The crazy white woman with the gun who basically came out and said, Joe Biden's he's gonna end the suburbs. There'll be no more suburbs, Joe.
Rick, I'm a big gun guy. I am a humongous gun guy. But my God, you listened to that last night. Joe Biden's going to get rid of the suburbs. There are going to be heroin needles everywhere. They're going to empty the prisons. He's a Marxist. I mean, they're going to lock you in your homes.
Yep.
It's not believable.
MS-13. They're going to invite MS-13 to live right next door to you. Matt Gaetz said.
Yeah. Look again. Trump's losing, and historically for an incumbent, he's getting his ass kicked. He's got one play here,
right?
And that's to scare the hell out of primarily suburban white people. I just don't think it's going to work.
I sure hope not. But here's the thing, and I know you're a huge gun guy, but do you not feel a bit uncomfortable with people like this woman? And the husband, having access to deadly weapons. I mean, doesn't it make you just take a pause for a second?
I will say this, Rick. I have no problem with any law-abiding, properly trained American defending their home with a firearm. I do as well. I just remembering that couple, that looked like the first time those two had ever held a gun. And the way they behaved with them was terribly irresponsible.
No, that's my problem. I mean, look, I'm not a gun grabber. I think I'm with you. At the end of the day, you should be able to protect your home and your family. I hesitate allowing people to go walking around with AR-15s and holstered guns in public or rushing into state houses like we saw today.
Yeah,
I'm a little hesitant over that because I don't think that's a good thing. But I'm not a gun grabber. But I'll tell you, some of the conversation and the direction that these folks, the fear that they're ginning up, I'll tell you, I'm a little weirded out by it.
Well, there's also a racist element here. Again, let's be clear. His audience is white people in the suburbs. He wants every white person in the suburbs to think that every American city right now is burning to the ground. And once these black and brown people burn the cities to the ground, they're coming to the burbs, and they're coming for your homes, they're coming for your kids, and they're coming for your guns. This is not subtle what he's doing.
Right.
It's ugly. It's wrong. It's ugly, but it'll work with some people, Rick. But the only people it's going to work with, I think, are the people who are already, in his camp.
Yeah. Do you think at this point are there any movables left? I mean,
yes.
Are there?
Yeah, I think there are actually. I really do. I hear from a lot of these people every day. I hear from a lot of independents and moderates who cannot stand Donald Trump, and they want to vote for Biden, but they're concerned the Dems may be too far left. I hear from these people. I think the Democrats and Biden, by the way, did a good job persuading these people last week, but there are still people in the middle who they don't want to vote for Trump. But I'll tell you, Rick, and I'd love your thought on this, I think the Democrats blew it last week by not at least addressing some of the violence and the rioting that we're seeing around the country. The Republicans are wrong to say every city's burning down. I think the Democrats are wrong to ignore it altogether.
Yeah, I don't think they know how to address the rioting other than, as I've been saying, look, the reality is the black population in this country's had enough. We see these shootings too often, and they are taking to the streets. The sad reality is there's a small segment of people, and oddly enough, they seem to be a lot of white people too,
Yeah.
who want to cause chaos, who want to cause trouble. And I don't know if they're agent provocateurs. I don't know if they're just plain people who just want to cause trouble. But this small segment seems to be the one who are causing all these problems. And I'm of the mindset that you have to figure out how to stop that segment while not stopping the people who are out there peacefully protesting and demanding their voices heard.
Agreed, and that's all Joe Biden has to say. That's all Joe Biden has to say. Black Lives Matter. Our cops need to be reformed. We have to be honest, America, that black lives are not treated the same way white lives are. What happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we need to investigate that immediately. But that does not mean you can burn businesses to the ground, period.
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, and it doesn't make sense that you're going to burn the businesses that are generally in your own community that you benefit from, and especially in these areas. Because look, I grew up in a housing project. I know what these areas look like. When I saw the buildings from the video in Kenosha, I know exactly what the neighborhood looks like because I grew up in a neighborhood that looked almost like it. There are very few businesses, very few supermarkets. There's not a lot in the way around. So why you'd want to burn those and destroy that makes no sense to me, because that's where you live. I mean, it's crazy to me.
Rick, the rioting and the violence, that's the Democrats' Achilles heel right now. The peaceful protesting, that's Trump's Achilles heel. I mean, after George Floyd was killed, and he was killed by a cop, and then all of America basically peacefully protested, Trump had no answer to that.
Right.
Trump's got an answer to all the rioting and the burning. He can just say, look, suburban whites, this is what's going on everywhere.
Be afraid. Yeah, you're right. And
afraid.
I'm going to be the law and order president, which is why in his not the Republican Party platform, because I'm going to ask you about this in a minute, but in his platform, they're doubling down. More cops, more harsh penalties, more of the same stuff that's gotten us into the situation we're in now.
It's all he's got. Be afraid, white people, and I'm the only one who can save you.
Yeah. I'm curious your thoughts. I'm thinking this is the first time that there deliberately has not been a party platform that the Republicans just kind of said, or the party formerly known as the Republicans, just said, whatever Dear Leader wants, Dear Leader gets. We're not going to bother going through all of that writing down our values and our thoughts. We're just whatever he wants.
Everybody says it. You probably say it. I say it. It's not a party anymore. It's a cult. I left the party in February because I don't want to be a cultist. The minute he got elected, Rick, they basically outlawed any criticism of him. You cannot criticize Dear Leader. And then Republican after Republican began abandoning all their long-held beliefs. And then I challenged Trump in the primary, and the party literally cancels 22 primaries and caucuses. And now we get to this point where, for the first time in my lifetime, there's no party platform. So that is the party acknowledging that they are not about advancing ideas. They're about advancing this one man. It's pathetic. It's a cult.
Yeah. Now, as I've said about you in the past, we've got differences. We disagree. I respect the fact that you've been consistent. You have your values, you have your ideology, and you've been fairly consistent. And I do know a couple of conservatives who are ideologically conservative and have been consistent. The sad reality is most of that ideology doesn't line up with what Trump is talking about and what Trump is doing. So to have the party formerly known as the Republican Party basically saying whatever Trump wants, that's basically, I guess just giving their ideology away, admitting there isn't one, that this is really just about power and about whatever they can get.
And Rick, that's why I believe, look, you and I have talked about it. I think Trump's going to lose. We have to believe that Biden's 20 points down every day. But I think Trump's going to lose. But I think the party's done. I think the party's screwed because Trump's going to lose, Rick, but 93 or 4% of Republicans are still going to vote for him. And most of those people buy what this ugly, populist, nationalist, intolerant Trump thing is. They're still going to be there after he loses. Trump's not going anywhere. So I think the party's done.
Right. So if that's the case, where do people like you go? Because, clearly I know a lot of Republicans who are never going to vote for a Democrat. They're not going to join the Democratic Party because we're all socialist and Marxist and leftist and communist.
But if the tables were turned, my good principled friend, you wouldn't join the Republican Party. Now, I'm not joining the Democratic Party, not because you're all socialists, but I mean, generally, on most of the issues, I disagree with the Democrats.
No, I mean, I wouldn't see. For me, I've always said, get back involved in the party, take it over, and bring it. I'm hoping principled Republicans bring the party back to somewhere close to the sane line, because we do need to have two political parties. We do need to have competing ideas. We do need to have two functional, institutions that are going to help us in this wonderful thing of self-governance. Or am I too far off the path?
No, I think it's too far gone. I think Donald Trump is the last dying gasp of a two-party political system. I think the Republican Party will breathe its last. It's the Trump Party. I think people like me, open-minded, tolerant conservatives, are going to be in the political wilderness for a long time. I think we'll endeavor to create a third movement, maybe a third party, but there aren't enough of us. I couldn't go back to Congress in 2022 or 2024 because there aren't enough people on my side who think like me. So we're going to be in the wilderness for a while.
Yeah, that's I guess scary on one hand, but I guess possibly, maybe as a country we can begin coming somewhere, back into the, between the curbs at least, somewhere back on the road, because sadly nothing gets done because we're so polarized and we're so pitted together against each other. The other day I did a spiel about, look, Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, all lives matter.
Yeah.
Get it? Yeah. Sad reality is the people who are running this country don't care about any of us. So I've taken the position that no lives matter. To the people who are running things. How do we get back to somewhere in the middle of the road to where we can each of us look at each other and go, Joe Walsh matters and Rick Smith matters. How do we do that?
Well, Rick, a lot is going to depend on what the Democrats do once they win. Biden's going to win. The Democrats will take control of the Senate. They will increase their numbers in the House. And then what do they do? And I mean, that's a question for you too. I think if they govern responsibly from a kind of middle left axis and do some of the things you'd like to see them do, but maybe not rush to the far left, I think they could pull in people like me. They could pull in reasonable Republicans.
Yeah, for me as a labor guy, I'm hoping they go and do something on labor law reform. I would like to see the end of Taft-Hartley. That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
But even something tinkering around the edges of something a little bit better than the Employee Free Choice Act to give workers the ability to collectively bargain. Because look, I talk to people every day who say, I'd love to join a union. Problem is it's damn near impossible to do.
You are a dinosaur. You are a dinosaur. And I mean that with respect. You are such a great union guy, and it's a shame because union issues just aren't sexy issues right now.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I tend to believe that, and this is where I guess maybe I am a dinosaur. I tend to believe that if you can, through your work, support yourself and your family, put a roof over your head, have a future, that a lot of our other problems solve themselves. If you can get health security and retirement security, and that work is actually rewarded. Because look, I think what happened, especially during the Tea Party era, and maybe you can agree or disagree, I think a lot of those guys who were drawn to the Tea Party era, saw their jobs evaporate, saw deindustrialization of the 80s happen, saw the trade nonsense during the Clinton era just eviscerate communities and their jobs. And that ideal that they grew up with, work hard, play by the rules, get ahead, just isn't there anymore. So they're damn pissed off about it. And they're looking for someone, they're looking. And look, the Republicans gave them the other. It's the welfare queen. It's the immigrant. It's this. It's not the fact that the white guy in the corporate office and the CEO decided, hey, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to do things in China. Hey, we can move things to Mexico and bring it back here. That wasn't what they were given. So they were looking for someone to blame. At least that's my view on it.
No, I think that's a part of it, Rick, and Trump tapped into a lot of that.
Sure.
We've talked about, look, I think there were two strands to the Tea Party movement. One was the strand I identified with, which is we got to quit bankrupting future generations. We're in too much debt. But the other strand was a populist, pro-America strand. You nailed it. Manufacturing's changing. These industries are changing. Jobs are going overseas. Life in America is changing too quickly. And a lot of these white working class people ultimately turned to Trump. They turned to Bernie too.
Yeah. But, here's the thing, and this is where I think it's important. If you watch, Trump's little display last night, he did hit on things that I think people are anxious about. I mean, he has an ability, like an instinct, if you will, like I think no other politician, to be able to not just put his thumb on the issue that's the hot button issue that's irritating the hell out of people, but to be able to manipulate it in a way that gets people riled up and all knotted up in the panties, and you saw that last night.
But the danger, Rick, is here's why Trump is unfit. It's all BS. He's a demagogue. He doesn't mean any of it, believe any of it, and every time he opens his mouth, he lies. Look, Donald Trump got the nomination 4 years ago on that very first day when he came down the escalator and he said, I'm going to build a wall and I'm going to make Mexico pay for it. When Trump said that, all of his supporters, and I heard them because they called into my show, they said, I effing love this guy. The Republican Party hated what Trump said, but working class white people got it.
Yep.
It was all BS. It was all a lie. He's conned his voters, but you're right. He knows how to con them.
No, absolutely, and he's got that instinct, like a used car salesman. He could sell a
Yes.
he could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman wearing white gloves in the desert. It just is what it is.
And Rick, and I'll speak for my party. My party ignored these concerns that these voters had for a long time. That created the opening for a demagogue to come along.
As did the Democrats. No, look, I'm not saying the Democrats were perfect. They have forgotten me entirely. They've taken the labor movement for granted for decades, and we're in this weird spot where a big portion of organized labor did vote for Donald Trump because they didn't
Hillary ignored you. Hillary ignored Pennsylvania and Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
Michigan. Absolutely.
No, and I tell this story. My wife's going to roll her eyes really quick. I shook Barack Obama's hand twice. And twice he told me we're going to get something better than the Employee Free Choice Act. And the sad reality is we didn't get anything.
Right. But you shook Barack Obama's hand. Hillary didn't even visit that area or that state.
Well, she was here for the convention.
Yes.
And they had a really big rally in Philadelphia a couple of days before.
I remember that. Yeah.
That upset everybody because they snarled traffic for hours. But again, another one of those moments. So going forward, because I want to get some of your thoughts on what we're expected to see, which I'm assuming is going to be more be afraid. Hey, look how religious we are. This about what we're going to get the rest of the week?
Yeah, and you know what's weird, Rick? Here's what Trump's doing. It's like this is what he's been doing for 3 years. He's talking to the people who watch Sean Hannity every night. I think Donald Trump is convinced that all he's got to do is rev up his base and get his base, ballistic, get them out to vote. He's making no effort to persuade anybody, I think, outside of his base. That's what last night was about. I think you're going to see it each and every night. I think his speech Thursday night will be that. He truly believes that he can turn his people out and turn out people who didn't vote for him. I think that's a flawed strategy.
No, I think so too. Before I let you go, I wanted to get one last thought off this topic. Still kind of on Trump, but Jerry Falwell Jr. Evidently has lost his job at at Liberty University. I guess he's been offered a job over at adultfriendfinder.com, which I find hysterical. Thoughts?
Just a scumbag. I know him. I've spoken down at Liberty University. Just a hypocrite and a scumbag. I'm libertarian, Rick. What you do in your private life, you do in your private life. But here's again one of these so-called Christian conservatives who tells other people how to live, and he's living a lie.
Yeah.
Just go away, scumbag. Just go away.
Yeah, I fully expect him to get back on the preacher tour and do all of that stuff. We'll have another Tammy Faye, and
I fully expect Trump to embrace him.
Of course.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I'm sure that there's some pictures. Well, we'll
Yes.
see. Anyway, as always, Joe, I appreciate the time. Really fun talking with you. I hope you'll come back again real soon.
You're the best, Rick Smith. Keep doing your thing.
Thanks so much, our good friend Joe Walsh. Love to hear your thoughts. Do you think it's going to get any better? Do you think the fun and the entertainment of It's the Other, do you think it continues? Like Joe said, I don't think he's got anything else. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1819. That was the day that Alan Pinkerton was born in Glasgow, Scotland. His father was a policeman who died while Alan was a boy. This left the family in poverty. As a young man, he became involved in the Chartism movement. This reform movement hoped to expand the political rights of the working class in Great Britain. Alan had to flee his homeland to avoid arrest because of his involvement. This led him to Chicago. It is a great historic irony that Alan Pinkerton came to the United States because of his involvement in a working class cause. Today, Pinkertons are often considered some of the greatest armed foes against unionism in U.S. labor history. In Chicago, Pinkerton became involved in law enforcement and then formed his own detective agency. The Pinkerton National Detective Agency made its name working against railway thefts, but it became most notorious for opposing the labor movement. Pinkerton spies infiltrated labor meetings for company owners, worked as hired guns to stop union organizing, and protected strike breakers. Alan Pinkerton died in 1884 and passed the agency on to his sons. During the 1890s, there were more Pinkertons and reserves than the standing army of the United States. One of the most famous battles between Pinkertons and workers occurred at the 1892 strike against Carnegie Steel in Homestead, Pennsylvania. There, 7 workers and 2 Pinkertons were killed. The event inspired a song by William W. Delaney. The lyrics included the lines, quote, "God help them tonight in their hour of affliction, praying for him who they'll ne'er see again. Hear the poor orphans tell their sad story. Father was killed by a Pinkerton man." For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I gotta tell you, I find the Jerry Falwell Jr. thing, kind of funny in the way that, the pious, the high and mighty, the judgmental, the Christian crowd who wants to tell us how we live our lives. Yet, if you watched Trump's little shindig yesterday, fearful that the liberals were going to ruin Christian values, going to ruin marriage. You hear this all the time, and it reminded me of, years ago, back when the whole gay marriage thing, first started coming around as a political issue. Back, I guess, mid to late 90s. I was driving for this company, and I would go up to upper northeast, like the Brockton or Boston, to a hotel, and then come back, and we would travel in a bunch. They don't do it much anymore, but we were like a convoy of like 15 guys, and you'd all BS on the radio, and it was a good time. This was before cell phones were so good. But I remember one guy who we stopped for lunch, and the story had come up on TV. Because he was a good God-fearing evangelical, actually snake-grabbing Christian. literally reached into the box and grabbed the snake, and preached the everything. He was down the line, and he was going on and on about how gay marriage was going to ruin the sanctity of his marriage. And I remember going, explain that to me. How is it, going to ruin your marriage? What's it got to do with you? Nothing. So he was going on and on about this, and finally I had enough, and I said, I don't think the gays are going to ruin your marriage. I think the girlfriend and the kid that you've got that picks you up at the hotel in Brockton, I think that's going to ruin your marriage. I think the hypocrisy of you pointing your finger at others while you're the one stepping out on your marriage, that's probably going to be the one that destroys it. The wife and 3 kids that you got in Pennsylvania and the girlfriend and the kid that you've got up in Massachusetts, that's probably not the most Christian of ways of doing things. And I find it that the people who point their fingers, the people who are the ones who are the overly judgmental, the people who are the ones who go around saying how everyone should lead their lives, are doing some freaky stuff. Do I have a problem with Jerry Falwell Jr. sitting in the corner while his wife and the pool boy do whatever it is they're doing? I don't. I don't care. Doesn't affect me even a little bit. If that's what he wants to do, his God bless him. In fact, if God wants to pull up a chair and watch too, good for him too. But don't be this hypocritical, insane kind of religious zealot. And this is the weird thing, because understand there's going to be a conversion, because evidently Becky Falwell, the wife, she says, she just wishes Christians could forgive. I wish Christians would be as forgiving as Christ was. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, would Christ be as forgiving? Maybe he would want to watch too. I don't know. And I don't care. Here's the thing that is extremely frustrating to me. We have Donald J. Trump in the White House. Seriously. Because this guy was hiding a secret from the people that follow him. We have Trump in the White House because this guy couldn't come out and admit that his wife was fooling around with the pool boy, a businessman, the neighbors, couple of strangers, guy on the highway, who knows? So he was susceptible to blackmail. We know this. We know the only reason that Falwell threw his support behind Trump is because Cohen blackmailed him. That's simple. This administration, and you could go, but Rick, they all do it. Maybe so. We know about this one. This is provable. There are witnesses. There are people going, yep, I did it. In fact, Michael Cohen, the guy who did it, said, yep, I did it. I had the picture. And now there are recordings. There are all kinds of stuff flooding out. So the question comes back to the evangelical community. Will you find your faith? Will you find the belief structure? I know we need to forgive. We need to forgive Donald Trump for his indiscretions. We need to forgive him for all the lies. We need to forgive him for go down the list of things. But we're going to be super harsh for everybody else. I mean, it's really kind of crazy. And it's another one of these moments where the people who keep telling you how religious they are, how pious they are, how important they are, they're the ones who are doing all this crazy stuff. And I look at this congressman from South Florida, this Brian Mast, who evidently a couple of years ago, it's now being reported, it's back out again, that he had joked about rape and referenced sex with a 15-year-old girl in a Facebook post to, I guess, his now campaign manager. And you go, who are these people? Well, these are the people who are the Republican Party, or what is left of it. I used to say before, and maybe Joe's going to convince me that maybe the Republican Party really is dead. Maybe something else has to come up. Maybe there has to be something different. The sad reality is I guess what Trump showed the rest of the party is, if you can be a misfit, you can be someone who has a, sordid past. Politics is for you. The dirtier your background, the better off, maybe. It's really crazy. And, like I said, I think Falwell will come back as a televangelist. I think there's going to be a big, him and Becky are going to be beside each other and talk about how they were wicked and how Satan, whatever. And there'll be stupid people go, oh, well, we now forgive you because you've come forth and admitted that you were sitting in the corner while Becky was banging the pool boy. It's really sad. Now, from my point of view, and this is where, Joe likes to say he's a libertarian, and I do have some libertarian leanings, which are mind your own business. What consenting adults do within their four walls, what they do, if they want to invite somebody into their marriage, that's their business. It shouldn't be something that you hold them with blackmail over. But here we are. We're in this moment where maybe Donald Trump, maybe Junior here takes the job at Adult Friend Finder, and maybe they go a whole nother direction. Maybe Becky and the pool boy will be porn stars. Who knows? We will see. So there you go. Love to hear your thoughts. Would you watch? Would you subscribe if Adult Friend Finder signed up Jerry Falwell Jr.? Would this bring in a new movement of the Christian conservatives? The cuck Christians, what were they calling it? The cuck-servatives? Yeah. A little too far, I think. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1925. 500 African-American sleeping car porters gathered at the Elks Hall at 129th Street in Harlem. The meeting was called by A. Philip Randolph. The purpose of the meeting was to form an independent black labor union for the sleeping car workers. The porters were service workers on the popular Pullman train sleeping cars. They were paid low wages and worked as many as 400 hours a month with no overtime pay. They could not be promoted to other jobs within the Pullman Company. Those were reserved for white workers. They faced daily acts of discrimination on the job. Many of the porters became increasingly determined to change these working conditions by forming a union. There was a company union, but it did not represent the demands of the workers. But talking about an independent porters union was a good way to get fired from the Pullman Company. A group of porters reached out to a young black rights activist, A. Philip Randolph. They asked him to lead the union charge. As an outsider to the company, he could be the face of the union without facing the threat of being fired. Randolph accepted their offer. He organized the meeting in Harlem. An American flag and large Union banner draped the stage. Randolph opened the meeting with a prayer as temperatures in the packed room soared to 90 degrees. From the stage, Randolph issued a rallying cry for reduced hours, increased wages, and most importantly, dignity at the workplace. It would take 12 long years of struggle after that meeting, but the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters would become the nation's first black labor union. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So Mike Pence yesterday said Donald Trump's going to make America great again. Again. And I would argue again, don't know that he made it great. The economy was doing fine under Obama and steaming right along. And Trump just, jumped onto the coattails and then did what a good PR person does, took it over for himself. This is what we've lived. We've lived through a great con job. And, we said this, on Friday we played, Inauguration Day 2017, as a kind of a reminder of, how bad how bad we said it was going to be compared to how bad it is. And I said, we're going to live through a great con job. He is a masterful con artist. And as I said to Joe, this is a guy who could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman wearing white gloves on her wedding day in the desert. He's just got that ability, and he's snookered the whole country, or not the whole country, the 45% who are cultists at this point. But what we are doing is we're making the virus great again. Thank goodness for Mississippi, the folks in Georgia are saying, because Mississippi is now the state with the highest number of coronavirus cases per 100,000, according to a 14-day average that's kept by the Associated Press. Georgia had been that. They have now fallen. Their numbers are ticking down a little bit. But thank you, Mississippi. Also, Florida has, just in the last 2 weeks, nearly 9,000 children in the last 2 weeks who have been diagnosed with the coronavirus as they've been pushed back into school. And you go, wow, the kids will do fine. How many moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas are now going to be infected because the kids came home with it? And again, this is Republican ideology. And if you've been watching the convention, if you've been watching Trump Fest or Fear Fest or Hate Fest or however you want to call it, they're on the everything's great. We dealt with that pandemic. We did a great job. We saved millions of lives, and things are going to be wide open. And for the people who want to believe that, I fear, the cause of the next great boom. And I also look at the University of Alabama, who evidently their main campus there in Tuscaloosa has reported 531 cases. That's concerning, according to the president of the university. He says it's an unacceptable rise. Now, for the college kids, I'm like, okay, if you really wanted to go do that, you keep them there. College campuses are, pretty much sealed off. If you want to go and you want to party and you want to do all that stuff, you want to subject yourself to being infected and all that, good, go, knock yourself out. You have freedom and liberty. And I said this from the beginning. When Liberty University wanted to force everybody back, fine. We put up a giant fence all the way around and none of you get out until all of you get it and all of you build up an immunity to it and you can't infect the rest of us. If you're living on campus, you're probably not going to take it home to mom and dad, so they'll be okay. Then grandma and grandpa's not going to get it. They'll be okay. Fine. You're an adult now. Those nasty Democrats, according to the crazy girlfriend of Donald Trump Jr., they're going to steal liberty and freedom. It's your liberty and freedom to get sick and potentially die. But you don't have the right to take it and give it to other people. And this is one of these weird moments where, we're looking at the stories coming out and those southern states, the freedom states, their numbers are rising. And at a time when you've got Trump who's saying it's over. Because if you watched the convention yesterday, if you watched Trump Fest, the sense that I got is that it's over. We're moving forward. It's behind us. He's acting like there's already a virus. There's already a vaccine. There's already a cure. Pushing the plasma transfusions and transfers and all of this other stuff. And you go, okay, I thought hydroxychloroquine was the answer. We're now going, oops, it wasn't. And you haven't heard Trump talk about it in a while, have you? So for me, and this is one of those curious moments, we're not ready to fling the doors wide open. As much as I want to, as much as I want to go back to life as I remember it. We're not ready for that yet. We're not there. But we got a cheerleader in the White House who's telling the rest of us, it's okay, go. That to me is troublesome. Very, very much so. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about, who the winners in this pandemic have been, who hath the spoils accumulated toward.
That united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
Top regulatory officials in Trump's government keep chanting the same one-word mantra: deregulate, deregulate, deregulate. Day after day, these agency bosses have been liberating greedy business interests to do their damnedest to us consumers, workers, the environment, and even to our chicken dinner. Yes, chicken. Instead of Kentucky Fried or tacos con pollo, they're serving up chicken a la avian leukosis. That's chicken infected with a virus that produces cancerous tumors and lesions on the birds. In July, the U.S. Agriculture Department's Food Safety and Inspection Service rubber-stamped a demand by Tyson Foods and other multi-billion-dollar meat conglomerates to deregulate chicken processing rules so they can sell chickens diseased with avian leukosis for human consumption. And no, the huge brand-name marketers would not even be burdened by having to put a right-to-know label on the package so we consumers could know what we're buying. As always, the industry line is, "It's perfectly safe. Trust us." No. Their claim is that slaughterhouse line workers can simply cut out any tumors they see, then process the rest of the animal. There are two problems with this claim. First, avian leukosis can be a systemic disease passing through the blood, so slicing tumors doesn't necessarily eliminate the virus. Second, line workers don't have time to see tumors, much less remove them, since Trump's corporate-hugging regulators have also allowed poultry factories to speed up their processing lines to 175 birds per minute. This means each worker handles up to 3 chickens a second. As Lyndon Johnson used to say about such political hokum, they can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. To learn more, go to Food and Water Watch, foodandwaterwatch.org.
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's take on what Wall Street and Washington are up to. For information, visit hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as Fear Fest 2020 rages on, with the party formerly known as the Republicans having their little shindig, funded by, very well-to-do folks, talking about how well the economy is doing. And the truth is, for some, the economy is doing wildly well. The 50 million people who have lost their jobs, not so much the millions of people who don't have health insurance, not so much the millions of people who are afraid that they're going to get evicted from their rentals or, thrown out of their homes because they can't pay the mortgage. Not so much. But according to the folks over at Americans for Tax Fairness, we're 5 months into this pandemic, and, well, our very wealthy are doing very, very well. Thank you very much. In fact, the total wealth of our billionaire class, they claim, has jumped by nearly $800 billion. And our heavy 12, the top 12 folks, the richest 12 in our country, they have an accumulated wealth now north of $1 trillion. Yes, that's $1 trillion with 12 zeros, a 1, 12 zeros. You can write it down. You might get writer's cramp by the time you get to the end, but that is a ton of money. And here to share some thoughts on how that's possible and maybe what we do to remedy the future and help folks who are truly struggling. I've asked Chuck Collins to come talk with us. Chuck is the director of the program on inequality. He's also he's also head of the Institute for Policy Studies as well. Chuck, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick. Good to be with you.
So I'm looking at these numbers. Is this accurate? Our billionaire class, our 600 billionaires that we've created, pocketed nearly $800 billion in increased wealth over the last couple of months?
Yeah, really since the sort of the rough start of the coronavirus lockdown, those folks have seen their wealth go up. And just for comparison's sake, during the economic meltdown 2008, 2009, the billionaire class in the United States saw their wealth go down for almost 2.5 years. It took them 2.5 years to get back to the level of wealth they had in 2007. Here we're seeing kind of like a surge in wealth at the very, very top.
How is that possible? I mean, look, I understand, 2007 into 8 and obviously 9 and 10, there was all of the turmoil and the country saw this massive collapse, massive unemployment, a massive home loss. And as you pointed out, even the wealthy, while, they didn't want for anything, they still saw a hit. How's it possible they didn't in this?
Well, in some ways, this shows how the Wall Street markets and the stock market have delinked from the reality of most people's lives. There are also ways in which, like right around that time, the Federal Reserve stepped in and started, flooding the markets with cash, which helped, the wealthy. Fact is, wealth goes up, and the stock market goes up when unemployment goes up. So there's that, perverse effect that capital benefits when more people are desperate and competing to work. And the reality is really, most stock is owned by the top 10% of the society, and they're all betting on all kinds of little movements. And then I would just say there's also just a pandemic profiteer group there. There are people who own the video conferencing technologies and the cloud-based technologies and the Amazons and the package delivery services, and they're obviously seeing their fortunes dramatically increase.
Yeah, and the Walmart clan, they're doing well as well. I saw this story, today that the S&P 500 is now at a rocket high, and you go, how is that possible? And you're right. There's this decoupling of Wall Street and Main Street. While Main Street's suffering, Wall Street seems to be being fat and happy, and it almost seems like Wall Street never loses.
Yeah, it's the heads I win, tails you lose economy. I would just say, this is the way the economy is now wired. It's wired. The rules, the tax policy, trade policies, the rules are tipped to benefit large asset owners at the expense of workers, and it's just in hyperdrive. We're seeing now kind of the way in which the pandemic supercharges the existing inequalities. So, someone like Elon Musk, whose wealth has literally tripled in 5 months. And that's, people are maybe making bets on battery technologies and that sort of thing, but that's just unprecedented, really.
Yeah, I look at the CARES Act, where there was a $500 billion slush fund for corporate America. And again, we never seem to miss an opportunity to stimulate corporate America. And look, I don't want to see people lose jobs. I don't want to see, mass closures of companies either. But it seems like whenever there's a moment where we need to rush in and save Wall Street, the check is never questioned. The accounts are never empty. But boy, if we're going to help, a single mom stay in her rental unit and make sure that there's food on the table, boy, you hear people screaming, "Oh, we can't afford it." I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's so clear too that the bottom up stimulus, unemployment insurance, boosting people's unemployment benefits, the stimulus checks to the extent that, they got to people eventually, all those things actually really do boost the economy from below. And all the bailouts to the corporations and that sort of thing actually don't really have a long-term healthy effect on the economy. So we know how to do this. It's just political corruption, really, the capture of our system.
Because you're right, we do know how to do this, and I have a fairly wealthy uncle who tells me how how things should be, and he loves to lecture me on we should the idea of we could give all the poor people all the money that they want. He goes, eventually I'll get it all, and he's right. And this is how we should have been doing things. We should have made the people at the bottom whole, and there would have been a trickle up, because people still need things from Amazon or Walmart or cloud-based services or Zoom or whatever. And make sure that people are able to pay those bills and participate in the economy and keep their homes and their insurance and all of that. That to me seemed to be the right way to go about it.
Yeah, it's interesting to see states like I'm in Massachusetts, and spend time in Vermont too. Two states with Republican governors who have created their own sort of buy local stimulus. They've created they're proposing sort of like debit cards. Every resident gets money that they can spend in the state on products that are local. Now, that's a great idea. That's exactly the kind of thing we know really does boost the local economy and boost the Main Street economy. So we know how to do some of these things in a way that reduces inequality and actually gives the economy a shot at a time like this.
Yeah, but from what I hear from folks, that kind of a program, that's socialism, Chuck. You're talking about socialism. People are going to get lazy and fat and weak, and you can't have that.
Well, again, these are two Republican governors proposing a people stimulus. So I don't think they haven't been attacked as socialists so far. I think people understand there are all these small businesses. People don't have money in their pocket. That's not going to. Those businesses are going to be in trouble. So there is a virtuous circle here we can encourage.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Donald Trump came out with his 4 executive orders, and one of his great ideas is ending the payroll tax, which yesterday we find out from Social Security's chief auditor that by ending the payroll tax within, I guess, by the middle of next year, the disability fund will go belly up, and by 2023, Social Security will go belly up, and that's it. If you're collecting Social Security today, it's done by 2023, and that seems to be the crux of his idea.
Yeah, this is sort of like the old disaster capitalism playbook. Under any circumstance, we're going to go after those entitlements, and then lo and behold, we're going to have to privatize those and cut those benefits, and it's sort of like that's always the program. Whenever there's an opportunity, they're going to push this privatization, shrink and privatize program.
Yeah, but isn't this a moment where we go back to those huge tax cuts that they gave out a couple years ago? Isn't this a moment where we go, maybe we have to go back and undo that? Because here's the thing. Our billionaire class, nearly $800 billion wealthier, maybe they could chip in a little bit, just a thought. And I know a lot of them want to. I have people that I talk to with the patriotic millionaires. They're saying, look, we need to be paying higher taxes, especially in this moment. Isn't this one of those moments where, as a country, should be going, yeah, we're in the middle of a crisis. It's time.
Well, and I think that there's really broad support for raising taxes on the wealthy. I mean, Trump cut capital gains taxes by 25%, dropped it from 20% to 15%. So now there are workers who are paying a higher taxes on their wages than investors are paying on capital. Senator Sanders, co-sponsored by Markey and Gillibrand, put forward this pandemic wealth tax, an emergency tax that make the billionaires pay, inspired by the studies that we've been doing at Institute for Policy Studies and Americans for Tax Fairness, just looking at how much wealth is surging to the billionaires. And their proposal is tax 55% of that gain, since March 15th. And as of today, that would be, over $400 billion that could go for health care or, offsetting some of the losses that our state and local governments are experiencing. Clearly the federal government should be helping state and local governments sort of get through this. That's where people are really getting hammered.
Yeah.
Budgets are getting hammered.
And next year is going to be really, really bad because I don't know that there are any states who are able to run a budget deficit. I know the state that I'm in, Pennsylvania, can't borrow money. So what they bring in is only what they can spend, which to me means slashing education budgets, slashing health and human service budgets, slashing that social safety net that people rely on.
Yeah, I mean the current estimated state budget gap, what states are staring down right now is something like $350 billion. Well, half of it's look at the billionaire wealth gain. 640 people, $800 billion.
Wow.
Tax half of it and send it, and you've closed every state budget gap in the country.
Yeah, and that's something that has to be done at the federal level because, as we're seeing in New York, a lot of people are leaving New York because they're going, hey, we're going to have to start raising taxes to pay for some of the fallout from this crisis.
Yeah, we've been deficit spending, we've been borrowing, and at some point the piper's, the bill's going to come due. One of the things, Rick, actually, that we've been looking at is how the rich are hiding their money right now. They know they're anticipating a Biden presidency. They're anticipating that the bill is going to come due, and they're like freeloaders slipping out the back door of the restaurant when the bill's about to come due. They're using trusts and offshore tax havens to hide their money. So that's one of the things we're really watching closely, because a lot of these billionaires, we're going to, we know we need to raise taxes on the top. So do they, and some of them are finding ways to move their money to the shadows as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's scary stuff. And I don't see anything coming out of the Trump administration to help with this. For someone who ran on, we're going to solve our budget deficit problems and pay down our debt. His entire presidency has gone completely the other way. So I'm curious if you've been paying attention to the last day, I guess day and a half now, of the party formerly known as the Republican Party's little shindig.
Well, just like you, I've been sort of watching bits and pieces of it as much as I can take. Especially after the Democratic convention, which I thought was kind of a remarkable event. I'm not a big, I don't like to sit and watch hours of TV, but I actually found it pretty interesting. This just seems so sort of paranoid. It's the politics of grievances. It's like hearing wealthy people whine about how their lives are hard. It's like so anyway. But I can't see how they can retell the story, recast themselves as the victims of this economic downturn and pandemic. It's on their watch. They can't pretend that they didn't have a role in fanning the flames of economic insecurity.
Yeah. So, I guess the last line of questioning I've got for you, where do we go and how do we move forward on this? I've been saying for years, we need to have a much more sane tax policy. We obviously need to return to some bit of even the Reagan tax code before they dropped it down to 28%. When Reagan took office, even moving back to that, what policies do you see moving forward could be helpful? Do you see anything coming in the way of a stimulus out of Mitch McConnell in the Senate anytime soon? I'm curious where your mind is.
Well, I just think the pressure is building. I think it will be really embarrassing for Congress to not act, not do something to boost unemployment insurance and put money in people's pockets so they can survive. Especially if we go into the winter and we get a second wave of the pandemic, we're going to need to have an activist government that's on the side of the people here. We should anticipate, the bill is going to come due, and we should have a fair tax code to pay for it. And we should look at excess profit taxes. We should look at how to tax the pandemic profiteers. There's several hundred companies that are kind of predatory, and it's kind of like World War II when Harry Truman had these war profiteering committees and looked into, how is it these companies are making so much money off the war when everyone else is sacrificing and losing their lives, losing their livelihood. And I think something like the Sanders proposal, a billionaire one-time emergency wealth tax to sort of help states. There's things that we can do to kind of cushion the blow, particularly in state and local budgets. And the federal government, as you said, Rick, that's going to be the feds helping the states get through this. And it can be done on a state-by-state per capita basis.
Yeah, I just don't see anything coming out of this administration to move in that direction. And sadly, and maybe you'll agree or disagree, if it were to happen, it would be based on who kissed the ring and who didn't.
Yeah. You could sort of see Trump in the final month becoming this kind of economic populist and trying to basically say, look, the Democrats are on the side of the billionaires. I'm going to go after the billionaires. We actually had this wonderful video done about our study on this billionaire surge, and Trump tweeted it out saying, yeah, we got to do something about inequality. And you can kind of see, because he doesn't stand for anything really, how he will remake himself in the weeks prior to the vote to say, I'm the guy, vote for me, because I'm going to, address these billionaires. I'm going to take on Jeff Bezos and the billionaire class and defend the rest of you. And, even in the past, he's talked about wealth taxes. He'll say anything, right, to get elected. So I think we should just anticipate he's going to try to sound like he's more populist than Biden.
No, you're spot on. But Chuck, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the work that you guys do over at the Institute for Policy Studies. I hope folks will take a look at your website, inequality.org. We'll get links out on how folks can take a look at that. But as always, great talking with you.
Thanks, Rick. Take care.
Appreciate the time. Chuck Collins, he's the program on inequality and the common good. Program director there at the Institute for Policy Studies. Again, inequality.org is their website. Make sure you check that out. They do fantastic stuff. Curious your thoughts. Is he right? Do you think Trump does the about face and then picks this mantle up and says, no, we need to soak the rich and now? Going to be interesting to see how these next couple of months play out. Quick break, right back. Stick around. And listen to the Rick Smith Show.
Waving the flag of freedom for people, not corporations. Rick Smith.
Laura is forecast to strengthen, possibly into a major hurricane, before making landfall along the Texas or Louisiana coast.
Twin storms pummel the Gulf Coast. Northern California fires rage out of control. Plus,
we can and we will deal with climate change.
2020 Democratic National Convention touts climate action.
All of that touting and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The Trump administration finalized plans to open up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to drilling. It marks a major step towards reviving fossil fuel development in an area that has been untouched for 3 decades.
Untouched for 3 decades. For a second, I thought they were talking about Mike Pence.
Oh, snap.
Bing, 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 bing.
This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, you have long warned about multiple disasters happening all at once, and that doesn't even include the Republican National Convention.
This is true, and here we are. Multiple simultaneous disasters, storms and wildfires, and a pandemic all at once. First, 2 storms are hitting the United States Gulf Coast in the span of just 48 hours. It's extremely rare to have 2 storms simultaneously churning in the Gulf. Hurricane Marco hit Louisiana as a tropical storm on Monday, bringing heavy rains and flooding. And as we go to air, Laura is now a serious threat to Louisiana and Texas, likely to hit midweek. In a press conference, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards warned that the state's emergency response is already strained by the pandemic, and residents should not get complacent.
The temporal proximity and the geographic proximity of these storms pose a challenge that, quite frankly, we've not seen before. And as a result, we don't know exactly what to expect.
The National Hurricane Center warns that no matter where Laura ultimately makes landfall, quote, winds, storm surge, and rainfall hazards will extend far from the center. And yes, man-made climate change does play a role, according to Washington Post weather editor Andrew Friedman on PBS NewsHour.
The Atlantic sea surface temperatures are so much warmer than average right now. So instead of giving just regular gasoline to these storms, you're essentially giving them rocket fuel.
Bing, 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 bing. Meanwhile, a state of emergency in California, where more than 1 million acres have burned, driven by extreme heat and high winds. In just 1 week, 2 fires in Northern California exploded into the second and third largest fires in the state's history. State officials say they are struggling to combat the unprecedented number of fires across the state. There's not enough equipment or personnel to fight them. Plus, the coronavirus pandemic has curtailed the number of state prisoners that are available to man fire crews.
And I suspect the coronavirus pandemic has also limited the number of shelters, whether it's the fires in California or the storms down in the Gulf Coast, shelters that people can safely go to and social distance within.
And yes, the storms that exploded over the past few days in California and Colorado show clear influences of man-made global warming. Multiple lines of evidence show how a warming and drying climate is increasing the size and severity of fires throughout the United States West.
Yeah, but Donald Trump said it was because we didn't rake the leaves in our forest floors here in California.
Yeah, he keeps saying that. I think he needs to come up with some new insane material.
Oh, that's not insane enough?
Action on man-made climate change was woven throughout the Democratic National Convention to formally nominate Joe Biden for president last week. In his acceptance speech, Biden placed climate among the top 4 of the biggest issues facing the nation, along with the pandemic, the economy, and systemic racism. Biden has proposed a comprehensive $2 trillion plan to solve the climate crisis and lift the U.S. economy out of the downturn that has been caused by the coronavirus pandemic and create new jobs by transitioning the nation to clean energy no later than 2050.
We can and we will deal with climate change. It's not only a crisis, it's an enormous opportunity. An opportunity for America to lead the world in clean energy and create millions of new, good-paying jobs in the process.
Finally, some strange but good news in Alaska. Just weeks after releasing an environmental report minimizing the impact of the controversial proposed Pebble mine, the Trump administration on Monday suddenly paused the permitting process, giving the mine's developers 90 days to explain how they would offset damage to the world's most prolific salmon fishery. Apparently, Trump's son, Don Jr., and a few Fox News personalities have been lobbying for the change.
Well, I guess that's all it takes. If Fox News is against it, so is Donald Trump. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. We're on a truncated schedule here at the Green News Report during our convention coverage, so we will see you next month. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the news reports today, 8-time Olympic champion Usain Bolt has reportedly been diagnosed with the coronavirus, tested positive. That announcement came on Monday. Evidently, he's been in isolation for, I guess, since Saturday, had his big 34th birthday party. It was evidently a surprise party last week. And they got, the videos showing, nobody wearing masks. Not social, hard to social distance when you're dancing. I get that. Evidently, there are some concerns. The Jamaican Prime Minister evidently has told reporters that they're going to investigate. Oops. But as of right now, the 8-time Olympic champion, he's got it. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, sadly, again, it's another one of those moments. Here to share some thoughts on last night's big, I still don't know what to call last night's for night one of the RNC convention. Fear Fest, Lie Fest, Crazy Fest, still not sure, but here to share some thoughts on what happened last night. I've asked our good friend Dr. Kelly Sennholz to come talk with us. Dr. Sennholz, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you so much. It's good to hear from you.
So if you watched last night's shindig, evidently Donald Trump saved millions of us, saved the lives of millions of Americans by acting quickly and boldly with vision to stop the virus. He did it alone.
Yeah, that's the story in his mind, I see. One of the problems is that, especially when I talk to people that are Trump fans, they think he did a great job, but they don't understand what a great job looks like. And what I was thinking about is South Korea actually has done a great job. They have 310 deaths total. And even if you adjust for population, that's 1,860 deaths. So they've had almost no deaths compared to ours.
Right, where we're at over 178,000 people who have died.
Yep, we're headed for 200,000, and experts say over 300 by election time, and that's a disaster.
Did you see the poll that was done recently that said that 57% of Republicans think 170,000 is not a bad job? It's okay.
We're having a little bit of problem with numbers. They can't understand the difference between a million and a billion. They don't understand that 180,000 dead people is a lot of people. They just don't understand or conceptualize numbers very well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm going almost 180,000 people dying because of this, and a time where during an entire year, during a flu season, during a normal flu season, if you continue to make that connection, you're talking somewhere around 30 to 50, maybe 60,000 for an entire year. We're several months into this, and at 180, and as you said, by election time, you're looking at 300,000 potentially. That's a huge deal.
It's absolutely a lot of people. And also, if you put it in terms of how many people per population, for instance, with just using that 180,000, we're somewhere around 1 in 2,000 people in the United States dead. However, if you also include the excess deaths at home, which we have to presume are COVID, we're at about 1 in 850 dead in the United States. So I would say about half to 1 in 3 people in the United States now will have known at least one person who's died.
Oh, that's terrible. But I look at again, what came out of night one of the RNC convention is, as I said, what they're trying to portray is Donald Trump did the most amazing job ever. It was the best job I've ever seen. People can't believe how good of a job he did, and that they're reopening the economy, and we're gonna have this amazing comeback, and the economy's gonna boom. Things are gonna be great. And I'm going, but we're not done. The virus isn't done yet. I know they keep saying there'll be a vaccine very soon. Trust them. I don't. But there's kind of a dual message that's scary to me. Is one, you did a great job and trust us going forward as we continue to reopen the economy and not do all the things we should be doing. I fear that there's come wintertime, late fall, boom, we've got an explosion of this stuff that then is just completely out of hand.
We have a couple of things that are coming together right now that are very, very concerning. One is, again, they don't know what a good response looks like. It means distancing, mask rules, adequate tests where you get it back immediately, buy-in from the population, having unity in the country, using data-driven responses. South Korea can track 1,000 patients an hour. We can't even track 5. I mean, our tracking system is broken.
Well, we don't have it, but here's the thing. The argument I think would be, Kelly, is we're not that kind of country. We're not South Korea. We're Americans, damn it. We're free. We've got liberty. We can do whatever we want. We can go to Sturgis and we can, have 250,000 people, shoulder to shoulder without wearing masks because we're free, damn it.
Well, interestingly, South Korea has a little bit of a problem with their right-wing Christian people, too. They have a church that was the source of their initial infection, and now they're spreading all these crazy stories about conspiracy theories. They're refusing to allow tracking. And it's a very concerning thing in South Korea also. However, there's just not many of them. It's a smaller group. They're more easily handled. People can stay away from them. They know that they're crazy and they're to be avoided. So they're able to handle it a little better. Our problem is our number of people that have a disconnect with reality is larger.
Yeah, and we've got one of them in the White House. I mean, if you watched last night's ordeal, it was really this alternative reality of how wonderful things are, and how Donald Trump did it all by himself, and how he single-handedly built the greatest economy in the history of the world, and how he handled the virus. And it was, if I didn't know any better, I'd go, wow, this is a great guy. He's amazing. We got to reelect this guy. The problem is I've lived through the last 3.5 years of lies and deception and failure after failure. And now we've got a situation where 50 million people are unemployed. Millions of people are uninsured. We've got, millions of people who are going to lose their homes. There's chaos on the horizon. What I saw last night was not what's going on in the streets of America.
Well, and also, experts in leadership always say you are the 5 people you hang around with the most. In other words, your characteristics will draw in the same thing in your friends. And he has got the biggest bunch of Looney Tunes you can imagine all together on one stage. It's just hard to imagine a more mentally unbalanced group of people all in one place.
Yeah, it was interesting, and for me the weirdest part was where Trump would have like a room full of people who I don't have a tape measure, but it didn't look like they were social distancing, and I know they were all tested beforehand, so they don't need to social distance if they've been tested, according to my right wing friends, but he had these people in a room, and he's like go say nice things about me. And you'll be staring at them, waiting for them to say nice things. And I'm going, how creepy is that?
I know, it was extremely creepy. The whole thing was extreme. That's why I couldn't even watch the whole thing, because I started watching it, and it gives me this nauseous feeling in my stomach, like, oh my God, this is United States, my beloved country, my beautiful land of the free, where people have come for 200 years as a haven on Earth, and we've got this nutcake up there just absolutely out to lunch, and millions of people cheering him on. That is really the problem. It's not so much Trump. Trump is crazy. He's insane. He's been insane all his life, and he still is. The problem is the number of people that have tapped into the hate, who literally drool at the idea of killing other people, who, by the way, invaded the I believe it was the Idaho State House today with guns and swarmed in without masks on, trapping the legislators there with a bunch of virus spreaders. They're real unstable. We have an unstable country right now.
No, and that's the scary part in all of this, is that for years the Republican Party has been the one who's been pushing this. You go back to Pat Buchanan back in '92, when he gave his spiel, and I think Molly Ivins was the one who said that his speech was much better in its original German. And as a country, we kind of turned away from that, but not the ones who were listening. They were still underground. Now they have taken complete control of what used to be the Republican Party, and it's now fully the party of Trump. I mean, at the end of it, when a political party says, we're not going to have a platform, we're not going to put forth our ideology, we're not going to put down our beliefs, we're just going to acquiesce to dear leader, that's a problem.
And I do believe I've been aware and connected with many of these, for instance, physicians who are far right. They're a very small group, but very vocal. And they really have been saying all these things for years.
Yep.
And everybody laughed at him. They thought it was funny. I did not laugh. I understood they were totally serious, and that they were not only serious, they were working toward achieving this goal. They were meeting. They were taking over school boards and town councils all over our country. They were they used the Walmart theory of spread, in that they went to the rural areas where it's much easier to take over a community. You don't have the sophistication. You don't have somebody there who's educated to say, whoa, 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 this isn't right. They can convince the community to fall in with them. So one by one, they literally have been doing that for 25 years now that I know of personally.
You've always had these kooks who, we used to know who they were, as you've said. Now they've organized. And, look, I said, years ago in 2010 when the Tea Party ramped up, I go, this is that group, the tinfoil hat crowd, now finding each other. And, this is the beginning of what is next. And this Q thing is probably coming next. And, who knows what's down the road after that. But not good for the country, because we're literally ripping each other apart, and we're literally, getting into camps of sane and insane.
I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm in communication with my hometown, and they have been taken over by this. The people that have remained sane have been telling me the mechanism of that is that they bought all the airwaves that these people listen to. Yep. So they have no other way to get information. And right now, my community is absolutely on fire with Q. And
we could spend an hour.
They spent the whole day the other day bleating anti-Semite information. I was like, this is Wisconsin, a farming town. It was horrifying. It was just absolutely horrifying to listen to. I think that Q is a lot farther along than people think.
Yeah.
And it's spreading like wildfire.
No, I mean, it's as I've been saying for a very long time, I started doing this program, 15 years ago, because, all my truck driver buddies were listening to, the Limbaughs, the Hannitys, the Becks, of this right-wing drivel of, things would be much better if we didn't have those stinking unions. And,
I know.
the more, I delved into it, the more you realize that your statement is right. There was a concerted effort. You go back and you read the Powell memo, from the early 70s, to take over, media. And with the end of the Fairness Doctrine, you saw the rise of Limbaugh, and you also saw, the corporatization. And Clinton helped us along with the Telecom Bill of 96 that allowed mass ownership of media. To where, talk radio, what I'm doing is overwhelmingly right-wing crazy. In fact, the Center for American Progress did a study a number of years ago that said, 91% of talk radio is conservative. So there's very little on the other side. There's very little balance in what we hear on the radio. And it's you look at a place like Philadelphia, where overwhelmingly the vote is Democratic. They've got like 5 conservative talk stations. They've got, mainstream conservative. They got crazy conservative. And then they got, oh my God, you're freaking nuts. And who knows what you're talking about, conservative. And there's nothing on the other side, which is, again, why we're in the situation we're in.
It is. And so then you say in a land, and Putin is using our freedom of speech against us. Like any good jiu-jitsu player, he assessed our strength, which is our unity, our commitment to each other, our freedom of speech, our freedoms in many ways. And he listed them, and he has used each of them against us.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise that these right-wing Looney Tunes that have always been out there. Of course, there's left-wing Looney Tunes too.
Sure.
But they gained power, and they found Putin.
It's scary. So let me ask you a last line of questioning, because, the attack then goes, well, Joe Biden wouldn't have done any better. Donald Trump saved us. Joe Biden would have made it worse. Would a Biden administration have done much differently? I mean, I go back during the Obama years where there were viruses that cropped up. and we didn't shut any countries down. We didn't shut the country down over it. Thoughts?
So let me say this really clearly. Like Fox News and OANN, like let's say we had a normal country with Biden leading. Our total death count would be somewhere around 1,860, not 180,000. And so we're talking about, and I can say that with absolute clarity because we have a direct comparison. We have more ability, more technology, more everything than South Korea has to be able to attack this. We had a plan. We had everything set up and ready to go. And even if it was 10 times my estimate, we're talking about 18,000 deaths, not 180,000 deaths. So, and okay, the number of deaths we have so far is going to be dwarfed by what's about to come if we cannot get a grip on this. And let me say that again, the number of deaths that are to come is going to dwarf the number we've already had if we can't get a grip on it. We have mass virus exposures happening all over the country, and it takes weeks and weeks for that to grow into the number it's going to be, and then we're going to hit flu season. We're going to hit indoor season, school season, event season. When we hit that, it's going to skyrocket like something we've never seen before. So people, it's going to be scary. It's going to be economically devastating. This is the worst part. They're killing our economy. They're killing our economy and our strength. Yeah. And they're doing it stupidly. It's just really hard to watch. No, Biden would have done a much better job. And, of course, the conservatives would have complained the whole while and said he should have done better and all this. But we know the end of the story. Now we know what it looks like when the incompetents have a hold of us during this, and it's really bad. Our death toll should have been under 20,000 for sure.
Yeah. But the thing is, I keep coming back to this. Had we an effective leader, when we shut down the first time, the shutdown would have been much more stringent, much more universal. And, we would have gone through that moment of pain. But at the end of it, we would have gotten through it. Sadly, all we did was delay it because, we didn't. In fact, you had a leader Donald Trump, who didn't take it serious, who mocked it, continually called it a hoax, and didn't take it seriously, refused to wear a mask, and allowed those Republican states with their Republican governors to just whatever you want, go on. I had friends who left Pennsylvania and were running around Mississippi and Alabama having the time of their lives, and now boom, we have this explosion in those areas, which now we're worried about the sacrifice that we made being for naught because they weren't along with us.
One of the rule number one in these public health disasters is communication, and buy-in is critical. And so when he broke that rule number one, it was inevitable we were going to have an onslaught of cases. Yeah. We knew this back then. We talked about it, but it was all for naught. And all his people have had a ball. They've been out going to parties and having a great time while the rest of us are in the house going, being the responsible ones. And meanwhile, they're destroying our economy. They're killing people. They're making a fool of us internationally. And they're cheering it on. It's just abysmal to watch. Absolutely.
Now, the sad thing is we've shown not just Russia, but also China how to defeat us because we're not a country that's united. It's a sad thing. But Dr. Sennholz, I appreciate the time and the thoughts. As always, good stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You as well. Our good friend, Dr. Kelly Sennholz. You look at this. The sad reality is, as I said, had we done the things that we were supposed to as we were doing them the last time we were shut down, March, April, into May, all the way to June. Had we completely locked down and really taken it seriously, you'd have had this whipped. It'd have been done. But you had those. It's a hoax. It's stupid. I'm not doing it. It's my liberty. It's my freedom. I should be able to do whatever I want. And now what we've got is we haven't gotten through the first stage yet. And sadly, there's going to be another. Now, hopefully there is a vaccine coming to the virus. Hopefully that is coming. Hopefully it will be safe. Hopefully we will have the mechanism to get it out. Hopefully. But do you really trust Donald Trump? The sad thing is this is a guy who would lie when the truth would be better. And the thing that really is concerning to me is the amount of pressure he exerts on these different agencies and on these different entities to get whatever he wants. I'm a little worried and freaked out about it. And it comes down, would you take the vaccine that Donald Trump had rammed through without the proper tests in place, without the trials? Would you do it at the word of Donald Trump? That's a tough one. That is most certainly a tough one. Love to hear your thoughts, though. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Gonna take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1819. That was the day that Alan Pinkerton was born in Glasgow, Scotland. His father was a policeman who died while Alan was a boy. This left the family in poverty. As a young man, he became involved in the Chartism movement. This reform movement hoped to expand the political rights of the working class in Great Britain. Alan had to flee his homeland to avoid arrest because of his involvement. This led him to Chicago. It is a great historic irony that Alan Pinkerton came to the United States because of his involvement in a working class cause. Today, Pinkertons are often considered some of the greatest armed foes against unionism in U.S. labor history. In Chicago, Pinkerton became involved in law enforcement and then formed his own detective agency. The Pinkerton National Detective Agency made its name working against railway thefts, but it became most notorious for opposing the labor movement. Pinkerton spies infiltrated labor meetings for company owners, worked as hired guns to stop union organizing, and protected strikebreakers. Alan Pinkerton died in 1884 and passed the agency on to his sons. During the 1890s, there were more Pinkertons and reserves than the standing army of the United States. One of the most famous battles between Pinkertons and workers occurred at the 1892 strike against Carnegie Steel in Homestead, Pennsylvania. There, 7 workers and 2 Pinkertons were killed. The event inspired a song by William W. Delaney. The lyrics included the lines, quote, "God help them tonight in their hour of affliction, praying for him who they'll ne'er see again. Hear the poor orphans tell their sad story. Father was killed by a Pinkerton man." For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So do you remember when, I guess it was back in March, that the plane from Russia came into New York? It was loaded with ventilators. It was loaded with masks. It was loaded with gloves. It was loaded with a whole bunch of stuff that we were led to believe was goodwill. We were led to believe that this was just humanitarian aid. Evidently there were 45 ventilators that were coming to the U.S. And we were going to be grateful. Evidently, a new report out says, well, the ventilators were crap, didn't work. And we actually paid a boatload of money for all of the other stuff. In fact, the household cleaning gloves that we used instead of medical grade gloves, I guess we were billed like almost $660,000 for them. Again, nothing's free, friend. But we also are finding out that this whole thing was moved along because Jared Kushner had a relationship with this Kirill Dmitriev, who is the CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, which is, according to reports, a sovereign wealth fund for the Russian government. And again, this is one of those moments where you go, but Rick, all of that talk of Russian collusion and all that talk of ties with Russia and, all that, it's all hoax. Doesn't mean anything. It's not factual. Yes, it is. There were tons of contacts. And I said from the beginning, these people have business contacts with Russian oligarchs who are, at the behest of the Russian government. You're not going to tell me otherwise because it is what it is, to use Donald Trump's frame. This is who they are. And the more we're going to find out down the road, and we will find out eventually, that, all of these characters in the Trump campaign and all of these characters surrounding Trump and Trump himself have got massive ties to Russian money and massive ties to Russian investments. And that's going to be part of what the compromise over him is. But is it surprising that Kushner would reach out to his buddy in the Russian government to go, hey, now you can say, hey, but, Rick, it's a good thing because we got the stuff we needed. You could say, okay, we got, 45 ventilators that didn't work and some household cleaning gloves that, were really expensive. Okay, that's fair. It's a fair assessment. Question that I keep coming back to is what kind of kickback did Kush get? Just kind of a thought. Some good news, though. Some good news. A federal court in Indiana has blocked Indiana's law to purge election officials for kicking people off the voter rolls immediately without notice. Doesn't mean they can't kick them off. You can still kick them off. You got to go through a process. So there's that. Also in Pennsylvania, the judge has stopped Trump's assault on Pennsylvania's mail voting law. And that, again, a good thing. So interesting to me that, the courts, while overly packed with Trumpkins, there's still some are saying, there is this whole rule of law thing. We haven't gone full fascist yet. Maybe just a thought. We should not do all these horrible things, at least in public. Just kind of a thought. But understand the reason that the Trump campaign is doing as much as they can do to ensure that we don't have mail-in ballots and we don't have access for folks who, traditionally aren't going to run to a voting poll. Seniors and college students. And there was a poll done yesterday that I came across from the Knight Foundation, who said that, when they polled college students, 7 in 10 of them say they're absolutely certain that they're voting, and 81% of them had an unfavorable impression of Trump. 19% had a favorable rating of Trump. Biden held a 52-point lead over Trump among college students. So do you think maybe if you're Donald Trump, you're going to try and figure out how not to get them to vote, how to ensure that we get to kick them off the voting rolls? Because you know what? These are the ones who Crosscheck was going after. These are the ones who the mail-in ballots are going after. This is the demographic that Trump does not want voting. Because these are the people who, they're the future of this country. And they're looking at what Trump has done with horror. Because they're the ones who are going to have to clean up this mess. They're the ones who are going to have to pick up all the pieces once once the party formerly known as the GOP has allowed this country to be ramshackled and robbed and pillaged and all of that. And as we speak right now, scorched earth, burnt to the ground. Scary, scary moments. But I got to tell you, I'm hopeful come November. I'm hopeful that through this convention that we see the kind of crazy. And look, I hope they continue the convention into next week. After what I saw yesterday, wow, a whole lot of crazy going on. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast, the Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.